My dears, today's story comes from my longtime neighbor and dear friend, Margaret. She's always been a strong, quiet woman, with eyes that carried untold stories. But even I couldn't imagine what was about to happen to her. And neither could she. Her long-awaited peace was shattered by a knock at the door. Behind that man in the dark suit was a secret that would change everything. So, get your heart ready, because this story will pull you in from the very first moment. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We need you to keep sharing these heart-touching stories.
The key turned in the lock, the bolt yielding with a dry click. I entered the apartment, the familiar scent of fresh herbs embracing me. I placed the small tote bag on the kitchen counter. The silence of the place a welcome respite from the cacophonous street. I opened the refrigerator, retrieving a bottle of water. My reflection in the stainless steel revealed my weary countenance, yet my eyes, those still gleamed with a stubborn flicker. I still remember that day. Vivian shouting, Robert with a closed-off expression, the air thick with resentment. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Vivian's words still echo in my mind. I gathered my belongings, the few they allowed me to take, and left. Without looking back. The pain was a knot in my throat, but my dignity that I carried like a shield. Dr. Mendez's office felt like an oasis of calm amidst the turmoil. He listened to me in silence, his dark eyes attentive to my every word. We'll sell the house, Margaret, he said, his voice steady. It's yours, and you decide what to do with it. 3 proposals in one day. 3 chances to start over. I chose Diane, the divorced woman with the sad smile and the same desire to rebuild. The money from the sale gave me this apartment, this small herb garden. This peace I so desperately sought. Vivian tried calling, she messaged. Ignored. The house was no longer hers. My suffering was no longer the currency of exchange. It was my turn to breathe. I gazed at the basil plant on the windowsill. Its vibrant green leaves stood in stark contrast to the overcast sky beyond. I had planted each seedling with meticulous care, as if I were nurturing a new future. A future of my own, unburdened by the shadows of the past. The doorbell rang. A short, insistent chime. It struck me as odd. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who could it be at this hour? A chill snaked down my spine. I cautiously opened the door, the peephole distorting the image outside. A dark silhouette, standing motionless in the hallway. Fear rendered me momentarily immobile. Who was there? What did they want? I took a deep breath, trying to quell the tremor in my hands. Curiosity, that old familiar companion, overcame my fear. I unlocked the door, the security chain still in place. I opened it a crack just enough to see the face. A man. Tall, dark suit, his face obscured by the shadow of his cap. Good evening, Mrs. Margaret. The deep voice broke the silence. I need to speak with you. Who was he? What did he want with me? Fear paralyzed me once more. His voice was strangely familiar. Where did I know him from? Or did I not know him at all? About what? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. He moved a little closer, the hallway light illuminating a portion of his face. His eyes, dark and intense, gazed at me with an indecipherable expression. About your daughter, Vivian. Her name hit me like a punch. What had Vivian done now? Why was this man looking for me? What did he know? What happened to Vivian? The question slipped out almost without me realizing it. The man smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. A great deal has happened, Mrs. Margaret, and you need to know all of it. I slammed the door shut, the security chain groaning. My heart hammered against my ribs, my blood running cold. Vivian. It was always Vivian. What had she done? What was happening? I leaned my back against the door, trying to regulate my breathing. The man was still out there. I could sense his presence through the wood. What did he want? Why was he looking for me? I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Dr. Mendez's number. I needed help. I needed to know what was happening. The line rang and rang and rang. No one answered. The answering machine kicked in, its recorded voice sounding cold and distant. I hung up, frustration washing over me. I looked around, the small apartment feeling like a cage. The peace I so desperately sought had evaporated, replaced by a paralyzing fear. What would I do? Whom would I ask for help? The doorbell rang again. A long, insistent, almost desperate chime. The man was still there. And I knew deep down that I couldn't escape. I would have to face him. I would have to find out what was happening with Vivian. And, above all, I would have to protect myself. The chain scraped against the metal, a metallic sound echoing in the corridor's silence. Fear was a knot in my throat, but determination, that grew with every passing second. I couldn't let him intimidate me. I couldn't let him control me. I opened the door, the narrow crack revealing the man under the dim hallway light. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady despite the internal tremor. "I know you said it's about Vivian, but what really happened?" He smiled again, a smile that didn't warm his gaze. "Calm down, Dona Margaret. I just want to talk. May I come in?" The hesitation was brief. Letting a stranger into my apartment seemed like madness, but curiosity, the need to know, was stronger. "Come in," I said, opening the door a little wider. The man entered, his dark suit a stark contrast against the pale walls of the apartment. He strode to the center of the room, his gaze sweeping across every detail, every object. "A pleasant dwelling," he commented, his voice smooth. "You've settled in quite nicely. What happened to Vivian?" I repeated, my voice more urgent now. He turned, his eyes fixed on mine. "Vivian is in trouble, Mrs. Margaret. Serious trouble." "What sort of predicaments?" I insisted. "Associating with the wrong people, risky ventures," he replied, his voice laden with a somber tone. "She's entangled in something exceedingly perilous." A chill ran down my spine. Vivian had always been impulsive, ambitious, but I never imagined she could get involved in something like this. "What do you know?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "I know enough to realize she needs help. And you are the only one who can assist her." "Me?" I exclaimed, disbelief etched across my face. "Why me? She never listened to me." "Because you're her mother," he replied, his voice firm. "And deep down she trusts you, even if she doesn't show it." His words struck me like a jolt. Vivian trusting me? After everything that had transpired? It was difficult to fathom. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice faltering. "I want you to help me find her," he replied. "She vanished 2 days ago, and time is running out." Missing? Vivian missing? Fear turned to panic. What could have happened to her? "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, suspicious. "Who are you?" He hesitated for a moment, his gaze flickering away from mine. "My name is Ricardo," he finally said. I'm a friend of Vivian's." "A friend? I've never heard of any Ricardo. Who was this man? What did he really want? How can I know you're telling the truth?" I asked, suspicion still coloring my voice. "You can't," he replied, his gaze locked on mine. "You'll have to trust me, or Vivian might not get another chance." Those words struck me like a blow. Vivian's life was in peril, and I, the mother she had rejected, was the only one who could help her. But how to trust a stranger? How to know if he was telling the truth? How to find Vivian before it was too late? A whirlwind of questions flooded my mind. Ricardo waited, his gaze fixed on mine, his expression unreadable. The decision was mine, and time, that precious commodity, was running out against me. What would I do? What would be the next move in this perilous game? Hesitation was a luxury I couldn't afford. Every second wasted could prove fatal for Vivian. Ricardo watched me, the patience on his face almost palpable, yet I felt the urgency throbbing in the air. I needed to make a decision, and fast. "All right," I replied, my voice firm now. "I'll help you, but I need to know everything. No secrets, no half-truths." Ricardo nodded, a faint, relieved smile gracing his lips. "That's fair. But I need your trust, Margaret. That's paramount. You will have my trust to the extent that you demonstrate you deserve it," I retorted, my gaze locked onto his. "Start by telling me how you met Vivian and what she did." Ricardo took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for a long voyage. "I met Vivian a few months ago at a business event," he began, his deep voice filling the apartment's silence. "She was ambitious. Extremely ambitious. She saw opportunities where others perceived risks, and she wasn't afraid to pursue what she desired. What kind of business are we discussing? I inquired, my curiosity gnawing at me. Investments, he replied, his voice cautious. Investments in real estate and technology, things that yield substantial profits. But that can also bring considerable trouble. And what trouble did she get herself into? I pressed. Ricardo hesitated again, as if weighing his words. She got involved with influential people, he finally said. People who don't like to be crossed. People who don't hesitate to resort to violence to get what they want. A shiver coursed through my body. Those words painted a grim picture. A world of dangers and intrigues I never imagined Vivian could be a part of. Yet, at the same time, it wasn't entirely surprising. Vivian's ambition had always been a fire that burned fiercely, and at times that fire blinded her. How did she disappear? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. 2 days ago, she had a meeting with one of those investors, Ricardo replied, his voice grim. She left the house, said she'd be back in a few hours. But we never saw her again. Has the police already been notified? I asked. No, Ricardo replied, shaking his head. We can't involve the police. Least not yet. If these people are involved, the police could put Vivian in even more danger. So what are we going to do? I asked, desperation beginning to grip me. How are we going to find her? Let's follow the clues, Ricardo replied, his gaze resolute. Vivian left a trail. We need to find it. And fast. What kind of tracks? I inquired, curiosity once again propelling me forward. Contacts, business dealings, debts? Ricardo responded. Anything that might lead us to her. But we need to start at the beginning. We need to know who she was meeting with, what her latest projects were, who might have wanted to harm her. Now, consider how this applies to my situation. I, a retired lady who lived peacefully in my small apartment, suddenly find myself in the midst of a web of intrigue and danger, trying to save my daughter from the clutches of unknown individuals. It was as if I had stepped into a thriller, where time was my greatest adversary and truth, a valuable prize that needed to be won at any cost. Where do we begin? I asked, my voice resolute. Tell me what I need to do. Ricardo smiled, a smile that, for the first time, struck me as genuine. We'll start with the last place Vivian was seen, he replied. The rendezvous point. Let's head there now. The oppressive darkness swallowed us as we exited the apartment, Ricardo leading the way, his gaze sharp, scrutinizing every shadow, every movement. I followed him, apprehension still a palpable presence, yet hope that flickered like a tiny flame within my heart. I had to find Vivian. I had to save her. Even if it meant confronting my own inner demons and venturing into a realm I never fathomed could exist. What awaited us in that encounter? What secrets would be laid bare? The Dallas night enveloped us in its dark mantle as Ricardo's car sliced through the damp asphalt. The silence within the vehicle was palpable, laden with unspoken questions and latent anxieties. I glanced at Ricardo, his profile illuminated by the passing headlights, his expression focused. Who was this man? A loyal friend? A protector? Or a player on a much larger chessboard, where Vivian and I were merely pawns? We arrived at a nightclub in the city's most bohemian district. Neon lights flashed across the facade. The music pulsed intensely, resonating within my chest. It was a stark contrast to the gnawing anguish that plagued me. Ricardo parked the car on a side street, the shadows engulfing us. This is the place, he said, his voice grave. The last place Vivian was seen. We got out of the car, the cold night air sending shivers down my spine. The atmosphere surrounding the club was thick with a feverish energy, a palpable blend of exhilaration and menace that made me uneasy. Ricardo guided me towards the entrance, the doorman regarding us with a suspicious gaze. We need to speak with the manager, Ricardo stated, his voice resolute. It's urgent. The doorman hesitated for a moment, but the determination in Ricardo's gaze convinced him. He let us pass, the music hitting us like a sonic wave. The club's interior was a labyrinth of strobing lights, smoke, and dancing bodies. A controlled chaos that made me feel even more lost. Ricardo guided me through the throng, his pace swift and resolute. We reached a back door of the club, where a burly bouncer blocked our path. Only authorized personnel are permitted entry, he stated, his voice deep and resonant. Ricardo displayed a card. A swift and discreet gesture that the security guard seemed to acknowledge. The door swung open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit corridor. We proceeded in silence, the music's din muffled by the substantial walls. We arrived at a small Spartan room, where a man in a suit awaited us. "Good evening," the man said, his voice cool and professional. "I am the manager. How may I help you?" Ricardo introduced himself, explaining Vivian's situation concisely and directly. The manager listened in silence, his gaze fixed on Ricardo, betraying no emotion. "Vivian used to frequent this club," the manager stated after a lengthy pause. "She was a special client." "What do you mean by special?" I asked, curiosity gnawing at me. "She spent a lot of money," the manager replied, his tone evasive. "And she associated with important people." "Do you know who she met with on the night she disappeared?" Ricardo asked, his voice sharp. The manager hesitated, his gaze shifting away from mine. "I cannot disclose information about my clients," he replied, his voice firm. "We're talking about a missing person," Ricardo stated, his voice rising a notch. "That's more important than confidentiality." The manager sighed, his face betraying an internal struggle. "She met with a man," he finally said. "A man I'd never seen before. He was intimidating. He exuded an aura of power and danger." "Can you describe him?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. The manager hesitated again, as if trying to recall the details. "Tall, strong, dark suit," he began, his voice faltering. "He had a scar on his face. A scar that commanded attention. A scar." The image of the scar struck me like lightning. Suddenly I remembered a man I had seen. Where? When? The memory eluded me, slipping through my fingers. But the feeling of familiarity was undeniable. "Did he say the name?" Ricardo asked, interrupting my thoughts. The manager shook his head. "No, but he had companions. 2 burly men who shadowed him like specters. And they seemed dangerous. Very dangerous." The manager's description only heightened my apprehension. Who was this man? And what did he want with Vivian? The web of mystery thickened, each new piece of information spawning more questions than answers. Faced with this new information, let us now consider how the search for Vivian becomes even more complex. The image of the man with the scar loomed in my mind, a key piece in an intricate puzzle. But where did this piece fit? How could this fleeting memory lead us to Vivian? Reflecting on this journey thus far, we perceive how the initially disparate pieces begin to interlock, revealing a complex mosaic where the hues of truth and deception blend in subtle nuances. This is not about enumerating the steps taken, but about sensing the gravitational pull each discovery exerts on the impending denouement. It is akin to observing a river that, fed by numerous tributaries, converges into a single mighty current, carrying within it the history of every drop, every stone, every bend. As we draw nearer to the resolution, the atmosphere thickens, the tension as palpable as the electricity that precedes a storm. The masks once snugly in place begin to slip, revealing the faces behind the disguises, the hidden motivations that propelled each act, each word. The pursuit of truth, that tireless compass, has guided us through labyrinths of shadows and false paths. Yet the light of clarity, however faint, is already discernible on the horizon. At this pivotal juncture, it is imperative to acknowledge that the solution lies not in the mere identification of a culprit, but in comprehending the intricate relationships that have woven this tapestry. It is akin to deciphering a musical score, where each note, each silence contributes to the final melody. Justice, much like a precise scale, demands that all weights be accounted for, all variables judiciously equated. Now the narrative is hurtling towards its climax, the moment when the curtains part and the stage unveils the final scene. Anticipation runs high, curiosity pulses, yet it is crucial to maintain an open mind, a receptive heart. Truth, more often than not, conceals itself within the minutiae, between the lines, in the eloquent silences. Like a tightrope walker, we advance with caution, each step calculated, each movement precise. The fall is a possibility, but the reward, the panoramic vista of revealed truth, is infinitely greater. The journey was arduous, the obstacles numerous, but perseverance, that essential virtue, has brought us this far. At this threshold where mystery converges with revelation, we are invited to contemplate the potency of human resilience, the capacity to surmount adversity, to rekindle hope even amidst chaos. The narrative unfolding before us serves as a mirror, a reflection of our own vulnerabilities and strengths, a reminder that truth, however painful, is the foundational bedrock for forging a more equitable and transparent future. The image of the man with the scar, once a blur in my memory, now revealed itself with the clarity of a long-forgotten nightmare. It was him, my late husband's former partner, a somber individual who had always sent shivers down my spine. That chance encounter years ago at the funeral, a frigid handshake and a gaze that promised ruin. How could I have forgotten? The answer was cruelly simple. The pain of loss had obscured everything, transforming memories into shadows. The realization struck like lightning on a dark night. Vivian, with her immoderate ambition, had crossed paths with this predator, and now she was paying the price. Fear transmuted into fury, a burning flame that propelled me. I would not permit that monster to harm her. Not while I had a breath left in me. Ricardo observed me, his expression unreadable. He knew more than he let on. I could feel it. But at that moment he was my only ally. I needed to trust him, at least for now. I know the man with the scar, I declared, my voice steady despite the internal tremor. I know him from the past. He is dangerous, very dangerous. Ricardo nodded, a flicker of comprehension in his eyes. This changes everything, he murmured. We need to act quickly. Can you recall anything else? Any detail that might assist us? The memory was a minefield, each step demanding caution. I sifted through old recollections, seeking a common thread in the tapestry of the past. The name, the address, a phone number, something that could lead us to him. And then the flash came. A business card forgotten in a drawer years ago. A name etched in gold lettering, beneath an imposing crest. I know where to find him, I announced, my voice thick with emotion. I have the address of his old company. Maybe he's still there. Hope was rekindled, like a tenacious flower sprouting through the asphalt. We had a lead, a thread of light in the darkness. But time was our relentless adversary. Every minute lost amplified the danger, diminishing the chances of finding Vivian alive. As the night deepened, the deserted streets echoed our hurried footsteps. Ricardo drove in silence, the tension palpable in the air. I gazed out the window, the sleeping city a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. The image of Vivian, the mischievous child, the ambitious young woman, the daughter I loved in spite of everything, invaded my mind. I had to save her. I had to show her that a mother's love was an unyielding shield, a force capable of conquering the darkness. We arrived at the address, an imposing building in the city center, its windows dark like vacant eyes. The silence was deafening, the atmosphere imbued with a sinister aura. Ricardo parked the car and turned off the engine. The silence was now absolute, interrupted only by the sound of my heart pounding furiously in my chest. We alighted from the car, the night enveloping us in its frigid, unforgiving embrace. The building appeared derelict, yet I knew he was inside, lurking, much like a patient predator. We had to get in. We had to confront him. We had to rescue Vivian. The search for Vivian, far more than a physical rescue, evolved into a rediscovery of my own strength, the capacity for unconditional love, and the courage to confront the specters of the past. The scar on the tormentor's face was merely a reflection of the wounds we all bear, life's indelible marks that shape and instruct us. But the true endeavor commences now, in the very instant we resolve not to be paralyzed by fear, but to embrace hope as a beacon in the darkness. The serenity rediscovered in the small herb garden, the illusory peace of the apartment, all of it now reveals itself as a prelude to the real battle. And that battle, waged in the quietude of the soul, is the one that truly matters.